Yep, they were getting angry. A lot of the Jewish leaders, particularly the Pharisees, the chief priests, and we'll call them like, not all of them. There were some fantastic Pharisees, I believe, and some of the chief priests were wonderful and all. But you could think of it as pets of Satan, actually, because Satan was ruling a lot of their hearts right there. It wasn't God, their king. And so the Pharisees were upset, and the elders, in this area, and the temple and all, and then the teachers of the law, the scribes, and then the Sanhedrin, or the chief priests, were they were getting really hot under the collar, so to speak. They weren't happy with what Jesus was teaching and the parables against them and all. And so the Pharisees went out and they started plotting against Jesus. But basically what they did is the Pharisees sent some of their disciples. They didn't even want to do it because I think a lot of the people already knew there was a problem with the Pharisees and Jesus. He kept talking against these Pharisees. And so they sent some of their disciples, a fresh group here. And so they sent their disciples. Jesus had disciples, they did too. Many groups have disciples. Even nowadays there's disciples, there's followers of teachers and all. And so the Pharisees started planning and plotting and trying to figure out what to do. And it didn't take them long to get this really conniving, slick scheme against Jesus. And they actually came together with another group that was mentioned in Mark, and this group was only mentioned 3 times in the Bible, and they're called Herodians. And I kind of mentioned them a long time ago. These Herodians were another group of Jewish people that's probably young. They probably were influential. Maybe some of them were older, but they were influential in Jewish people, but they liked the Herods. They liked the government of Herod. They felt like, hey, they're giving us some freedom of worship and all. Let's get along with them. Let's do what they want us to do. They seem to be kind of followers of the Herods, the kings, or the client kings who were over Israel. And so here we have the Pharisees, and they joined together with the Herodians. They came to Jesus. Now, where did they meet him? Somewhere out here in the court of Gentiles. Here's the Herod's temple here. Here's the temple proper, where the priests were. This is called the court of Gentiles. This is called court of women. This is called court of men, or court of the Israelite. And this is called the court of priests. And this is the inner court. And they go into the holy place, and then the most holy place right there, where they worship God all through here. And they sacrifice their sacrifices on that altar. And they had the water laver, and they attached the animals to there and then they pulled them off and they sacrificed them and all that. But Jesus and the crowds were out here, and he was talking to them. Hundreds and hundreds of people at this time of Passover. And if you remember, it was probably a Tuesday right here that he was dealing with all this. He was telling the parables. He kept conversing with them. He was teaching the people. And so they came at him, maybe here, maybe down here, maybe under one of the porches, under one of the roofs of the like porches and called porticos and all, where like if it was raining, you could stand under there. Anyway, this is what they did. They came to him, and then they asked him probably the most difficult question that he was asked, and they tested him, and it was a trial against Jesus. And what they did is they came to him and they tried to trap him. See, remember this trap I mentioned earlier? Here's this actual mouse trap. They were trying to trap him with a question, and they were trying to cause him to make a mistake in his words. They were trying to trap him in his words. And the fact is, he wasn't the mouse. He wasn't the one that was, the bad one. It was them who was the rats. These were rats. These were wicked people. As a matter of fact, Jesus even said when they asked the question, he could tell by the Spirit of God inside him, he could tell that they were like really bad. They were wicked. The wickedness of these guys were really shown. The word that about entrapping here, that they were going to trap him, is like trapping birds. If you can see these birds right here, I don't know if you can see them. We have different ones here. These birds were kind of like, they were trying to trap Jesus like they would trap a bird. So you've got this net here, and they were trying to put him in the net, trying to drop him in, like go like this and trap him with what he says, and then they got him, and they figure out a way that they felt like where they can trap him, and then either the people or the crowds are going to not like what he said, and they would kind of cut off this idea of him being the Messiah king, and to trap him as a prophet, like what he's going to say, and then, or the Roman government would jump in and they would arrest him for his answer. That's how powerful this question was. And so they were really, really coming at Jesus at this point, and they were trying to get him. And so what they did is they asked him this question. Seems like a simple question, but it's very complex and very deep. Well, first, before I say that, they said 4 things about him, like with flattery. They were trying to get him all nice, and I was like pouring honey all over him. But the honey was poison. It was a trap. And so this is what they said in the question. They said, "Teacher." They acknowledge him as a rabbi. They don't believe that he was a teacher from God. They did not like him at all. They said, and I believe they probably said it very politely, with stoic, noble feelings and a humble sense, and with very much respect. They did not like him at all. They were like, really being hypocritical. And Jesus actually calls him a hypocrite. Remember, hypocrite from way back is like a play actor, a pretend. They had a mask on. On the outside of them, they seemed really nice. On the inside, they were really evil. And so they said, "Teacher, we know that you are a man of truth, a true man." They don't believe that at all. They don't believe this guy's true and a true guy. He's a man of integrity and honesty. And so, number 1, they said 4 things. Number 2, and that this is a really bad one. They don't believe this at all. And that you teach the way of God. The way of God is in the Old Testament, like God's ways, the way, the path to God. We don't believe that at all, but they're lying. They're hypocrites. They're play actors. They're pretending something that's not real. They're not being real. God does not like fake, by the way. And say they were really being fake. But all the crowds are hearing them, and they kind of respected these teachers and leaders and all. And so they were putting it all candy-like. Sweet is good, but it can also ruin you with sweetness. Or there's poison and bitterness behind this thing. And that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. In other words, they're saying you're true in your way, and what you're teaching. You aren't swayed by men. Well, that's true. He wasn't, he didn't care what people thought. He's going to tell the truth. Now, maybe they believed that, maybe they didn't. But you're not swayed by people. In other words, you're going to give us an honest answer. See, they're setting up something really tricky here. Because if you're not going to be swayed by man, us, then whatever you're going to say, and it's either a yes or no answer, then we got you. Because half of the crowds are going to not like what you said, or like what you said, or no, not like what you said, or if you don't like it, then you're not. The Roman government is going to come and they're going to sway you. They're going to take you and arrest you on your answer. Wow, what a trap! You aren't swayed by men because you pay no attention to who they are. In other words, you're not swayed by the opinion of people, by wealth, by power, by fame. You are a good person. They're trying to say. Okay. Then they ask the question. Tell us then. Drum roll. They said, well, go ahead and tell us. What is your opinion? Is it right? Now, there's an important little phrase there. Right, is it righteous? Is it the right thing to do? And these are religious leaders. Herodians may not be really religious. They're probably more political, on the politics side. But tell us, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Should we pay taxes to Caesar? Now, this is the problem here. If he says no, which the Herodians would definitely disagree with this. So you got Pharisees and Herodians coming at him. By the way, I have to say this. Pharisees and Herodians did not like each other. They were enemies. They didn't like each other at all. The Pharisees believed that the Herodians given into this Roman government. The Pharisees do not believe Rome should be over us. They should not be controlling us. They shouldn't be our masters. and we should be serving God and loving God and giving him our money and everything else, where the Herodians were on the opposite side. But the Herodians didn't like Jesus for all the teaching that he was teaching about God and all that. So it's really interesting that the devil took his pets, the Herodians and the Pharisees. I hate to say that about the Pharisees. The Pharisees had so much wonderful stuff that they taught and all that, but we'll get into them more as we go. But Pharisees and Herodians were used by the devil to become enemies of Jesus. See, Satan will use anything to get at you. He knows how to figure out strategies and plans. And Jesus was sitting there having this incredible question, like, if he says, no, we shouldn't pay taxes to the Caesar, then all the people would say, all the crowds would say, yeah, because they all agree that Rome shouldn't be controlling over them. And I agree, too. Rome took over and forced themselves on their land of Israel. And so if he said, no, we shouldn't give taxes, they would have said yes, and then Rome would have said, okay, and Herodians would have immediately gotten the Roman government. That was a plot. That was a plan. Roman government would have said, but you're teaching sedition, division, treason. These words mean you're coming against the Roman government and you're coming against Caesar, which is like the top guy. It used to be Julius Caesar, and then right now it was Tiberius Caesar who was ruling at that time, and then went to Claudius, and then also, I can't remember them all, Nero, it goes all the way down the line, Gaius, all these different Caesars. At the moment that he was saying that, Tiberius was Caesar, and he was the emperor. He was the king of the Roman government, the whole empire. And so this trap was really set. Now, if he would have said, yes, we should go ahead and pay the tribute, then the people would have gone, oh, what? Are you kidding? I thought you're the Messiah and the king, and you're what? And the Pharisees would have said, gotcha in our trap right here. We got you in our net. Because if he would have said, yes, we should be paying those taxes, Herodians would have said, okay, but everyone else would have said, well, what are you saying? We should be doing what the Roman government is doing against us? And they hired and took publicans, like tax collectors, like Matthew and all. We shouldn't be like this. And so they were trying to trap him. There was a guy, by the way, in AD 6, and this time right now was AD 30, Anno Domini 30. When the story happened, well, in 6 AD, a guy named Judas from Galilee, if you remember in our stories, he came from there. He revolted against the idea. He fought against the idea of paying taxes, and he led military fights against Rome, and he was put down. Roman government put him down. No, he couldn't dominate them. And so they were trying to get him to be like a zealot, or like a revolutionary guy who would say no and the Rome would get him, or if he said yes and what are you doing? You're supposed to be on our side. You're a Jewish person. And so this is what Jesus said. Wow, what a tremendous answer he gave. This is the best answer. I think there's nothing that could touch this or top this. In my personal opinion, that he did not know all this was going to happen. Like he told his disciples later, don't premeditate on what you're going to answer to the kings and the people that ask you questions. But the Spirit of God was with him. Just like he'll be with you if you're following Jesus. You put the Word of God in you and you pray a lot and you stay close to God and he'll give you answers. I've had that happen in my life. It's very fun and very cool. So this is what he said. He said, you hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? He let everybody know right there. He cut right down to the heart. He could tell deep inside them that their heart was not right. And so what he said is, show me the coin. Bring me a coin. And he showed me the coin used for paying the taxes. So they brought a coin, very similar probably to this. Now, I don't know if you can see this right here. There's an inscription, there's an image on that right here. And he had someone bring him a denarius, a penny. A denarius is actually worth, when we say penny, it's different in that day. It was actually probably 16 2/3 of a penny, almost 17 cents. Like that's how many cents it was, 16 2/3 cents. which is basically a day's wages. And Roman guards and Roman soldiers got paid that much, by the way, a day. Of course, maybe some of them got more. But anyway, here's an image right here. I hope it's not blurring too much or anything. I don't know if you can see this right here. I'll get it really close. Probably it looks terrible now. But I'm trying to get you to be able to see that. There's an actual image on this coin right here. So someone had in the crowd the coin. Now, it wasn't a Jewish coin. The Jewish coins didn't have images on them. Of course, they did. Herod Antipas did that. He tried to flatter the Caesar up there, and he had images. Anyway, I'm going on and on about all this stuff, but this is really cool. So they brought him a coin with an image, and this is what he said. He said, whose portrait or whose image, like picture, is on it? And they found one that had Caesar's image, Tiberius. And whose inscription? And on the back it said, things like, well, there's different ones. Some actually said divine Augustus, like the Augustus coin had divine. Divine means God, and that's why the Jewish people were against images. They didn't want images of people on it. And also some of the statements talked about their emperors were God, which that's against God. Whose portrait is this, and whose inscription? They answered. See, he's putting the question right back onto them. He made them answer. Caesar's. This is what he said. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's. Do you understand how he got out of that trap? Plus, just that statement alone showed us a tremendous, many different lessons on how Christians should relate to government. And Romans 13, it says it. 1 Peter chapter 2 says it, talks about it. Titus 3. Anyway, let's start out by saying this. Hey, if this is Caesar's, it's got his picture on it, then give him what belongs to him. It's his. In other words, pay taxes. It's okay to pay taxes, y'all. After all, it is his. And the government is there trying to offer services. They did an upkeep of the roads. They had public buildings that had to be taken care of, harbors. There were taxes. There were two ways that Rome taxed them. One is taxes, and another way is through I can't think of the word there. I can't think of it. I can't think of it. It's not a census, but this was a poll tax that this one had here, and so. Anyway, so still trying to think of that word. There's two ways that they taxed them. I got this word census in my mind, and it wasn't right. All right, well, I'll just go on. Taxes. And so what happened is he said, give to Caesar what is Caesar. It's his. And go ahead and pay the taxes. That makes sense. And then render unto God what is God's, which is your whole soul, your life, your body, everything else, including your money, should be going to God and his service and all. So he slid out of that trap. Plus, he told us as Christians, by the way, that even though there's a separation in a sense of state and church, that doesn't mean we shouldn't try and influence the state towards God. In other words, government and all that. He said that, you need to give and obey the government at times. And there are times not to obey. But basically, when it comes to money, if they're taxing you, you should give their taxes. I'm still thinking of it, trying to think of the word. It's a word I can't think of. Maybe I'll get it in the next video or something. I'll refresh my memory on it. But here's what he's saying. Basically, there's a balance here. And God should have number one in your life. But there should be sort of a balance of money, of where it's going. Some of it should go to the government. Now, if this is a government over here, and I took these weights out, these are actual weights for this. See how it dropped down? I'll take this. In one sense, God should absolutely have everything of your life. He's the center of my life. He's first, last, and in between. He's number one. But there is times that you are supposed to give some of your money to the government and all. And there's taxes on this and taxes on that. Anyway, so then there's somewhat of a balance there, and then you have to kind of give it. So Jesus said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. There it is. I think that helped understand that scripture. By the way, they went away from him. They were totally amazed. They were astonished. They were taken in by that. They did not know what to say. They couldn't believe that he got out of that. And he also gave some wonderful things for all of us for the time we're on this earth, you know, on how we should treat our governments around us. And so they marveled. They couldn't believe his answer, and they just kind of went away from him. The next one is another challenging test, a trial, that another group came up to him and gave him, and we'll talk about them later. All right, thank you for listening.